name is Kathy Davis, and I am the owner of Backyard Pet Services. We are a McKinney-based company, and we provide pet sitting, mobile pet grooming, pet training, and also pooper scooper services. So our newest service line this year really focuses on dog walking and dog exercise and the benefits of that, and that is how we got to today's seminar. So I'm excited to be with you today. If I were to pop to the next screen, you would see me in the middle there, but my two trainers, my two special guests for today are listed here. So I am going to introduce Sarah first. Sarah is with Wholehearted Canine, which is her own training practice here in the sort of McKinney-Allen area. I can say a few words about Sarah to get her going, and then she'll let you know more about herself. Sarah's a Baylor grad, so she got her certification for dog training through the Absolute Dogs training program. She founded her company, which is the Wholehearted Canine, in 2017. Sarah's wheelhouse is creating and implementing really tailored training plans. And she especially works with animals where there are severe behavior concerns, including bite history. Sarah is all about positive reinforcement, empowerment, and as you'll see later as we're speaking, some science-based training games that are really exciting and helpful for your dog. So I've already spoken to myself in the middle. On my right there is Horace Hooper. So Hooper is the lead trainer here at Backyard Pet Services. He began his training career at the Perry Animal Care Center. So that was the SPCA over on Stacy Road at the time that it was still functioning. He moved on from there to Perfect Pack Training, where he studied under master trainer Chris Williams. Hooper focuses on short-term intensive programs, private instruction, the one-on-one, but he also does group classes. So welcome to you both. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. So let me roll to the next slide, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about. So there is a why behind dogs and dog walking and dog exercise. So we're going to explore that a little bit. Then we're going to move from there into the how, some methods that you can use. There are more of them than you might think. Next, we'll turn to making exercise a positive experience for your dog, because we want it to be a positive experience for you too, but making it a generally positive experience. Then from there, we'll go to safety. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the danger signs if your dog actually crosses the line to becoming over-exercised, because you don't want to go too far. So that's the program. Let me see if I can jump right into the very first slide, which is the why. So, of course, there are several factors that are going to combine about why dogs really need exercise, and of course, there is variation. So each of our speakers is going to speak about different aspects of this why, and I'm going to throw it over to Sarah first. First to say hello, but then also to talk about the physical, breed, and genetics aspects of why dogs need some exercise. So Sarah, hello and welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and good morning, everybody. Yes, so absolutely, as you can see, breed definitely does play a part in exercise, especially when it comes to working breeds, super high energy breeds. We want to make sure we're meeting their physical needs accordingly. Genetics as well. Each dog is an individual. So even within breeds, you're going to see a wide range. So we want to always keep in mind the individual. You might have a border collie that likes couch time. It's rare, but it happens. So always be treating them as individual with your exercise plan. Same with size. We want to be picking suitable activities, suitable intensity and duration. And same thing with muscle composition. So if you've got a very fit dog versus a dog that's got a long ways to go, we want to match our exercise plan and activities accordingly.
Awesome. So now I'm gonna check to see if Hooper's got some good audio there. And Hooper, the piece that Sarah addressed was kind of the physicality of the dog when it comes, when it arrives into our world. But there's more than that. There's after it gets here, there are variables around the age and health. So you can speak to that. Oh, and also say welcome.
Yeah, hi. Good to be here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, age definitely plays a pretty large factor in how much and what kind of exercise a dog's needs. Early on, dogs definitely need exercise and stimulation as a puppy. Not the same type of exercise, mind you, that a dog will need later in life. Typically shorter bursts. Dogs, because they're still growing, their joints aren't fully there. Too much over strenuous exercise at that age can have some long-lasting problems. As a dog gets older and hits kind of their prime, that's typically when their exercise needs are going to peak. Um, and then over time, as they get older and older, you'll likely see a slow decline as they go into old age. Um, Now, metabolism is an interesting thing. Just like with us, resting muscle burns calories. Dogs that have a large amount of muscle mass are going to need more exercise, as well as more food and more everything around that, just to maintain that muscle mass, just to maintain uh, the way their body works naturally, as opposed to smaller, more lanky dogs that aren't built to be muscles. Those aren't going to require quite as much exercise on average. As Sarah had said, each dog is an individual. You will find um, exceptions to a lot of rules here. Always keep in mind your dog first. Your dog's needs might be different than like the general needs for their age, breed, or anything like that. And that will always supersede just kind of those patterns. Now, as far as mental stimulation goes, there's more than just physical exercise. I typically split exercise into three different categories. There's the physical, there's mental, so the stuff like solving puzzles, thinking, engaging, learning new things. That's a different type of exercise. And then there's emotional exercise, or sometimes known as psychological exercise, which is a little more nebulous. But it's stuff like socialization, stuff that the dog has an emotional connection to, has a desire, gets super excited, gets super angry, gets super scared, those types of things. Exercise working on rehabilitating like aggression, exercise dealing with self-control in the presence of, oh no, friends or other forms of excitement. That's going to be your emotional type of exercise.
Excellent. Before I pass over to Sarah, I did have one question. You used the word prime, and so I'm thinking by prime that starts during adolescence and stops before you get to the senior years, and it would be different by breed. But can
Mhm.
we say just as a
Uh,
general rule of thumb, like
Between a
is
year
it
and 2 years is
okay?
typically when they'll hit it. I typically consider dogs out of being a puppy after a year. Now they're still kind of in that growing. They're still growing a bit for that second year. It's just not as dramatic as what I consider the puppy phase. Then at about that 2 year, generally is when you'll start to see like the same dog that you're going to see the rest of your life, kind of.
We're gonna be revisiting many of these topics again on subsequent slides. But so far we focused on the physical. So Sarah, what about the personality and temperament and how that influences an exercise requirement?
Yep, we definitely want to consider their personality, how much of an introvert, extrovert they are, those sorts of factors. Again, couch potato versus other things. They might have more or less needs for personal space, needs for more breaks to regulate excitement or stress, anything like that, depending on, again, personality and temperament. We'll also want to keep in mind that exercise does not replace training, which I'm sure, Hooper and I can both agree.
Oh, yeah.
We should not be relying on tiring a dog out to get desired behaviors, but also under exercising can create its own well-being and behavior issues as well. So we want to keep in mind what is suitable for their personality and temperament, but also make sure we're meeting those needs, adjusting for what they like and dislike, and kind of, again, making it individual according to their need.
Okay, there you have it. So that is some of the why and how it varies by the specific dog. So you probably know if you have one of these really high energy dog breeds who they are. But Hooper, maybe you can kind of highlight the special needs and challenges that come with these special breeds.
Yeah, any of the working class breeds, dogs that have been bred generations and generations that we have kind of built a breed specifically to follow out a job. Border Collie, Australian Shepherds, Huskies, those types of breeds. Those are typically going to have much higher need for physical exercise as well as mental stimulation as well. Even ones I'm blanking on the name of the breed, poodles. Poodles are also a working class breed. Labs technically they're one of the less. Yes, that labs are one of the working class breeds. I won't go into the minutia about how that works specifically. And those types of breeds. Now, then you're gonna have other high energy dogs, Jack Russell Terrier, and those types, but specifically those, like, we built dogs to have a higher amount of energy in order to fulfill those jobs. So those are typically going to be the highest energy.
So what's the implication here? So if you have one of these higher energy dog breeds and you're not doing anything or much specifically to give a channel to that energy, what's the implication?
That energy is going to find a different outlet. That energy typically doesn't just go away. Laws of thermodynamics technically kind of apply here. The energy can either be created or destroyed. It'll find an outlet, and typically destructiveness, taking that frustration out, tearing things up. Just generally, it can manifest as just a lot of behavior problems.
Yeah. And not to editorialize, but I suspect that the reason you see a lot of these breeds at a shelter, as an example, might be that a family got in over their heads or something like that, where there were just more requirements than they were able to deliver around giving a vent to that. So let's see. Now we're going to dig in a little bit deeper. So I'm going to circle you back, Hooper, on the three kinds and the social emotional, and just give us a deeper cut here.
Yeah. Physical exercise, that is anything that is going to get that heart pumping, to get those muscles moving. That's going to do the same type of physical exercise that we do. That's stuff like running, a lot of running, swimming. Swimming is actually an incredibly great one. If you can swing it, because it doesn't put anywhere near as much long-term damage on joints, and it's a very good cardio thing. Playtime, getting a dog all types of excited, games and whatnot. I know, like, us humans, we play football. Football is a great source of exercise for us. Same with dogs. Fetch can become a very good source of exercise. Just anything that gets them out and moving. Now, as far as mental exercise goes, there's stuff like puzzles. Puzzles do have a bit of a diminishing returns. Once a dog has solved the puzzle, like if you get a puzzle box for it, doing it again loses that mental exercise. It becomes more about, okay, I already know how to do it. I just have to go through the motions that I already know. So adding in, changing up the types of puzzles, training, learning new things is a lot of mental stimulation. Like, here's an example that I used to use. I know my mother, who she works a desk job, but at the end of the day, she's still exhausted. She's just wiped out. She didn't leave that chair. She's doing a day full of largely mental exercise and still has worn herself out. So don't underestimate how much effort, how much goes into and comes out of learning new things, and really putting their brains to work. And then the social emotional type of exercise, socialization is a good one. Socialization with structures, learning manners, learning the etiquette of how to meet a new dog, how to do it well and with self-control, is a great one. Dogs are very social animals. They tend to like it under the right conditions or in a secure environment. They love to meet and interact with new dogs. That gets them really excited and happy. That's one type of social exercise or emotional exercise. If you do have an aggressive dog, aggressive rehabilitative training. That is a very that wears a dog out very quickly. At least in my experience, like with a specific focus on that, we get about an hour of that before the dog is pooped for the rest of the day, with that type of stuff. So typically, the stronger the emotions associated, the more energy it takes to work on it. And that's, yep, those are the three types of exercise.
Okay, very good. Well, we know that there's always more. So Sarah, let's talk about the mental piece, which I think people underestimate the importance of this piece. So help us understand.
For sure. So training sessions, like Hooper said, there's a lot of that mental component, especially just decision making can be tiring. If you think of like taking a test, decision making is a lot. But especially with training sessions, I love to use training games personally. It involves that exercise, learning, play, bonding all together. So you're getting really wonderful multifunction and building that bond as well between you and your pup. For instance, like recall practice and development, something like that involves a lot of physicality as well as, other more physically intense elements. Even things that aren't as physical are still very fun. For getting a smaller range of movement, but still a good bit of mental and physical exercise together. And then, yes, getting that even mind and body exercise. My favorite games involve a lot of decision making, just differentiation, things like that, like differentiation with right and left with certain position or movement cues. Yeah, just fun details that involve, impulse control or thinking before acting along with those things. And then puzzles, yes. As Hooper said, it does take away a little bit from the mental stimulation side with puzzles they've already used, but they absolutely still have an effect as far as enrichment and supporting behavior in that way and supporting mental exercise to a degree. But yes, there are lots of other puzzle toys and games than just the ones that the dog is still. There's lots of ones that involve more, movement, dynamic interaction as well. So those can be very fun. And then scent, of course. This is a classic one that taps into a very natural drive for dogs. So sniffing is, of course, naturally enriching. They're moving around as well if we're sniffing, say, on a walk or whatnot. But scent work like search games, just enriching scent activities, all of that taps into, again, natural drive to get exercise that's very enjoyable and natural. You can do this with minimal no training too, for just basic search cues for treats and food. And you can also amp it up to all different levels of teaching new scents to indicate on and just more advanced skill and more physicality as well.
Let me ask you a question. You use the words recall practice, and I've heard those words before. For when you're working with a pet, is it recall in the sense of remembering something that has previously been trained, or is it more of a bring something back interactive activity? What is meant by the words recall practice?
Yes, good question. Sorry, that is the technical term for coming when called. So it's not a food recall, it's not a memory thing, it's not a retrieve, it's coming when called. So when you cue a dog, come here, that's just the technical word for it. So
yeah,
that's a recall.
So the foundation of everything. If you have a dog that won't come around when you look for him, then that's a great place to start. Okay, so now we're going to talk about if there's all these different pieces and ways, there must be a strategy that a person can use that would combine things to create a program, a really good program. So here's a couple, Sarah, that some of which are well-known agility training, and then some of which may be lesser known. So walk us through these.
Yes, so first off, when it comes to a lot of the things on this page, it's definitely important to keep in mind body awareness and safety first. So especially with things that involve obstacles, fast movement, chasing objects, anything like that, we need to make sure that your pup is ready for those things. Those are activities I don't do with a dog until I've assessed body awareness and made a plan as far as injury prevention, especially for super high drivey dogs. If their drive for that toy or chase will outweigh self-preservation, absolutely, it's not a good activity for them yet. We need a little bit more impulse control, awareness of where they're placing their feet properly, landing properly, first involving toys and obstacles very carefully to make sure they know how to use them safely before we just dive into full-on fun activities free for all. So, for example, in agility training, we don't want to be working directly with obstacles until we're good to go on those sorts of safety elements. But it is a very fun activity that helps build physical skill along with good cooperative skills with communication with their handler, something you can do together and stay fit together. And obviously involves a lot of physicality as far as moving around together, following cues and maneuvering obstacles all at once. And that one's very popular with good reason. There's lots of fun ways to apply it. You can do backyard versions or at home, or competing. You don't have to compete to enjoy these sorts of things. There's fun little smaller versions of equipment you can pop up in your backyard that I use all the time. Very fun. Interactive fetch is not as complicated as it sounds. You can just incorporate different cues and activities within the string of like throwing, retrieve, and going again. So for example, you could use a behavior chain as a super simple way to incorporate something into that. So that just means we're going to use a string of cues between our throws. So you might sit down, roll over, and then go and release to chase. You could also just use all sorts of other more proximity related cues, middles, like a middle position, or anything else that involves more thinking, along with just the chasing. So we don't want just repetitive, overexciting activity. Because yeah, again, that's also more inclined to injury if we just got repetitive activity that is intense like that. Also, happy National Fetch Day. Today is apparently National Fetch Day. So yes, just to highlight that fetch itself is also one that is highly likely for injury in high drive dogs because you've again got that repetitive activity. So just to keep in mind injury prevention and things like wrapping the ankles or doing paw checks throughout and making sure that your dog knows how to preserve their own safety with how they place their feet and how they grab the item if you're going to play fetch.
Okay. On this next one, Hooper, everybody understands tug of war, but tug of war with commands sounds different. Sounds
Well,
so help us understand what that is.
I mean, while it might be different than regular tug of war, it's more or less the same thing as the interactive fetch. What we're doing is adding in, we're throwing them curveballs. So we're adding in other commands while we're doing tug of war. So they have to keep their brain active. Okay, I can't just focus on the tugging. Oh no, he said drop it. I have to drop it. Oh, I've got to wait. Oh, he asked for an SIT. Sorry, sit. I'm used to spelling it in front of dogs, but I'm not asking the command. He asked for a sit. Keeping their dog engaged and on their toes so that they can't predict what's going to happen next. If they can't predict, they have to watch and then react. So that is kind of the way to keep their brain engaged. So for tug of war, we start the tug of war. Well, we could stop it with end it with a drop it. It's really just switching up whatever commands, things that your dog knows, and just throwing them out at him as he's doing it, as he's successful. I would like to kind of say one thing with any of these games. From experience, games that I keep failing at are not fun. Same thing for dogs. If they are struggling at any of these games while you're doing them, lower the difficulty. You want to make sure that they are succeeding so much more and having a great time. So for the tug of war with commands, if they are struggling, we're going to use easier commands, or we're going to slow it down, or we're going to give them more time to listen and react, and that type of stuff. And then hide and seek, I like to combine with scent work in general. The only difference is with hide and seek, the target is us instead of a scent item. I teach a fairly simple scent work exercise to a lot of people. I just call it find it. Basically, you'll at first, when your dog doesn't have any understanding of how it works, to teach it to them, you'll say find it, and you go get like a milk bone and dip it in peanut butter. Give that to them. Doing that a couple of times so that they start to associate that scent of peanut butter with hearing find it. Then one time you'll kind of leave it out when the dog doesn't notice that you're getting it, and then you'll tell them find it, and their brain will go, oh, peanut butter, and now all of a sudden they're looking for it. And you'll just work up to more and more difficult places. Same thing with us. For hide and seek, you'll hide, typically in an easier to find spot. Yell out the command to initiate the game. Once they find you, good job, lots of praise. And then going to hide again, and over time hiding in progressively more and more difficult situations. Those are good. Both of those are great because we don't have to change up what we're doing. What changes, what keeps them on their toes, is the location we hide it in. As long as we're not hiding it in the same place each time, they're having to put their brain into work in order to find it. So that's where you're getting that mental stimulation from.
Excellent. All right, a couple more left on this slide, and some folks may never have heard of the words flirt pole. So Sarah, help us understand what that is and how you could use it working with your dog.
Yep. So it's essentially like a giant cat toy. So if you think of those cat toys that are like a stick, a string with a toy on the end, and you play like chase games with them, that's essentially what it is. They are very fun. They're a great way to get more physical exercise for the dog and less for you if you've got like a dog that you can't quite match their energy. But again, something we need to be very careful about injury prevention, because you can very easily cause injuries with changing direction in the air, changing direction of the toy when the dog is in the air, or quick pivots. So we want to make sure we're using it in rounded motions unless there's a specific reason you need a pivot and you know your dog can handle that type of motion without hurting themselves. But again, very fun for dogs who have good chase and toy drive, but we want to make sure that it's used carefully so we don't get injuries instead of just fun. Another fun one that most people haven't probably heard of is canine freestyle. There's freestyle dance competitions and disc competitions. I'm a big fan of the disc personally, but in both you incorporate fun combinations of cues to essentially create a routine for your dog if you're competing, properly. So with freestyle dance, it looks kind of like your dog is dancing with you. There's usually a storyline to it and music, usually a lot of props. So it really looks like, they're tucking themselves into bed, or they're, delivering mail, just something cool and unique by chaining together different little behaviors, but very enriching physically and mentally exercising as well. And again, these are both sports that work really well to work out with your dog, build skills and communication together, and stay fit together. Disc sport is similar in that it's, routines and using kind of cues together, but you're throwing a disc throughout and you can do complex throws or behaviors mixed in with it, and lots of fun stuff mixed in. You can get creative as you like, which is why I like these. That allows for a lot of creativity and fun with you and your pup together. So very fun sports. And you absolutely, again, don't have to compete properly, in public to enjoy these. You can enjoy backyard versions or in your house as much as you like.
Excellent. I think what's especially delightful here is the mental piece combining with the physical piece. I know that the very first time I saw my dog working with a trainer, and I saw the look on his face where I could tell his mind was engaged and his curiosity was up, and there was a physical piece as well. But it was a whole level that I had not seen with my dog before. And so, it's more than just roughhousing, right? There's other things that you can do that really bring some joy and enrichment to your pet's life. All right, so from here, we're going to talk about putting things together, compounding, because sometimes space and time are a factor. So you have to make some choices and really design that program. So Hooper, the first row contains some creative options for you.
Yeah, the benefit of combining the different exercise types is that they have a compounding effect on how quickly it'll wear your dog out. So when time is a factor, the more of those three, physical, mental, and emotional, that you can mix together or use at once, the faster you can get them meet their needs for the day, so to speak. Now, so daily walks are pretty good. In a perfect world, it would just be physical exercise, provided they know and already understand how to walk properly. But we don't live in a perfect world. You'll see other people, you'll see other dogs likely walking around. That's when that emotional exercise is going to start to kick in. Okay, can you hold self-control when you see the temptation? Yeah, dog parks. I and I know Sarah kind of feels very similarly about this. Tend to recommend against dog parks. The biggest struggle in being a dog owner is every other dog owner on the planet. Um, you don't know whose dogs are going to be there, what temperament they are, how involved they are, how much work they put in, and that recipe, that risk is set to kind of you're likely to get hurt eventually, or your dog is more specifically. You don't know who's going to be there, and because there's so much uncontrollableness, we can't intervene quickly enough to catch things and save stuff. As well as your dog is gonna have a bad time if that happens. So I tend to recommend, and I think Sarah recommends using more of the private dog parks, like the ones that apartment complex have one specifically for them. Anywhere that the dogs that are going to be there, that type of stuff, that type of socialization. But that type of socialization being kind of free to run around together in an enclosed space with other dogs is great, as it both exercises their social aspects, they're interacting with another, as well as the physical act of just playing. Interactive play at home, we kind of talked a lot about that on the last slide, a lot of different types of options there. Stair climbing, I thought someone pointed this out to me recently, and I was like, that's kind of genius. You're just kind of running up and down the stairs with your dog. The dog, if you're adding in the hey, you're following me type thing, that's that mental stimulation. Okay, I got to stick right behind mom, dad, whatever, and then you're basically throwing them on a stairmaster in your own home, and stairmasters wear me out so fast, like that can be a way to get them a lot of physical, one of those short burst, high intense physical exercises as well. Play dates with other dogs is probably the best type of socialization you're likely going to get it. Again, when you know the dog, you know their temperament, you know what to expect. That's the type of socialization you want. That's how we ensure, one, our dog has a good experience while socializing. And we can ensure them a safe environment to do so. So that's typically what I recommend when going through that same socialization.
Terrific. And then still more options there on the middle road, Sarah?
Yep. And I want to reiterate, yes, dog parks are typically not recommended unless it's a little private dog park. So, either you're the only ones there, you can keep an eye on the gate, or a few neighbors that are there, your dogs can interact well with them and they work as a good match. Otherwise, what we want is known playmates in another setting that is a little bit more structured so that you, again, can intervene easier than in a large open space. So yeah, I agree. Playdates are always what I recommend as most preferred. But other fun options include indoor doggy daycares. I'm super particular about these because unfortunately, in most, it's not the standard to have thorough assessments and small groups. So many doggy daycares will have very, very large groups of dogs, which is not safe just inherently. Staff that's not fully trained on how to prevent conflict, just how to intervene after, and not necessarily great procedures to ensure a dog is really a good fit for that and that they'll enjoy it and thrive there, not just be able to tolerate it enough to hopefully not get hurt. So absolutely check that wherever you intend to take your dog does a really good job on safety and assessment there with people who really are knowledgeable and care. Urban hiking is a great opportunity. So some of these are great options too if you're a little bit more in the city and you don't have as much, big areas or outdoor spaces. Urban hiking is great. There's lots of fun smells that are enriching all over, even if you don't have a ton of awesome green space around you. Lots of fun places to explore. They're a little bit further away if you're willing to drive a little too. And then dog-friendly outings, cafes, shops, especially downtown areas kind of around here are awesome. Most of them are pretty dog-friendly, great places to explore when the weather is nice, to kind of either review some skills, enjoy the social element, smells, new places, all sorts of fun stuff you can do to combine that physical movement together with lots of mental enrichment and activity as well. And then dog sports and classes. This is a super fun option that allows a little bit more structured guidance, a little bit more social element with other owners and dogs in again, a controlled environment. Allows you to kind of connect a little bit more with specific goals, with community, those sorts of elements, along with mental and physical exercise as well.
Great. And then the last three for Hooper.
Interactive toys and puzzles. Again, puzzles are very good when you can get enough of them. I know that I think I heard of like one subscription service that like sends you they have like a puzzle of the week or month or whatnot, and they send you a box with that in it. So you have a way to get new puzzles for your dog regularly, which can be a good option. On top of that, coming up with your own puzzles. I know back when I was working at that shelter, we kind of had to make our own stuff up. So we'd put the treats in a box and then like close that box a certain way and then put that box in another box and close that box in a different way or cover it in a different way, and just kind of changing those things up. So every time a dog got through the box, that same tactic wouldn't then work for the next box and they had to stop and think again. So as far as coming up with puzzles, being creative in your own way, and interactive toys, there's tons of great gaps. We live in the golden age of the dog industry where just about anything you could think of is out there. I will say though, for the types of toys where your dog plays by themselves. So like automatic fetch machines, anything like that. Make sure that they can handle that while supervised before giving them the freedom to run it on their own. Because again, anything could happen. As Sarah mentioned before, some of those incredibly high drive dogs can very much hurt themselves. You want them to be able to handle it with you first before we give them the freedom to do it on your own and give them the trust to be able to handle that. Now, the one toy that I will kind of point out against laser pointers, just don't even think about it. They short version, they drive your dog more or less crazy. Not great for them from a mental level, not great for them from just a visual level. It's not worth it. Now, running or biking, just kind of like the daily dog walks, it's very similar to the daily dog walks, just at a higher speed. You're going to want to work with them on walking with you on a bike, because that is a little bit different than being on a walk, but not that much different. And local dog friendly events are in my opinion, a great way. Because one, not all dogs out there in the world are on a great temperament. And at a dog park where nobody has any control, that's not the time to learn that. But at a dog event where everybody's got their dogs on a leash, that's our chance to see, notice, and gauge kind of, okay, wait a second. How far away do I need to be, and how to handle these types of situations safely and effectively, while we still have that degree of control. Well, we have the leash attached while they have the leash attached, so everybody can be safe. But also the good versions. If you're not running into poor dogs, it's also a great time to exercise some physical self-control. Oh, you want to go over and see the cute dog over there? Well, we're only going to do that if you're going to walk well, and that type of stuff. Really holding them to the standards we've been holding them to, and then letting them earn whatever they typically want.
Terrific. Well, let's see. Now, you might have space constraints as on the prior slide, and you might have time constraints. So, Sarah, if you've got a busy schedule, what are some options that you can think about to make the most of the time that you do have?
Yep, I love helping people maximize their effort as far as space and time when it comes to exercise. I've had a Malinois in a studio apartment before. It can absolutely be done if you're just a little creative. So strategic fitness activities are one of my favorite things to help people get started on. So if the dog is suitable for this, things like body targeting, so targeting, front and back feet strategically, and other forms of targeting as well. They're a little more advanced, over and under cues, things like that, where we're moving the body in controlled and cued manners, doing stabilizer muscle activities. So think like balance board, instability equipment. Again, with anything with instability, we want to make sure we've prepped our body awareness and safe usage calmly first, always before adding any equipment, and then gradually increasing difficulty safely with it. But those are really fun ways to use minimal space and time to get really fun mental and physical exercise really efficiently. And yes, again, any repetitive fetch or high intensity exercise we want to be careful with. Fetch, again, tends to be one that's popular because you can, if you're tired, use minimum effort on your side, get a really big output on the dog side. But yeah, stuff like this strategic fitness stuff can accomplish similar goals. So we just want to make sure we're picking what's best suited for your pup. You can even mix in a combination. And then incorporating exercise into routine tasks. This is one of my favorites, again, personally. You can take little microwave or TV commercial breaks. So let's say I pop something in the microwave, I'm waiting on it. I might just run over and do a few things with my dog real quick. It's a fun little surprise game for them. We get a little bit of physicality mixed in, and it's just a fun way to incorporate it without having to commit a big chunk of your time each day. Same thing for commercial breaks on TV, or little chunks when you're just waiting for something, on hold on the phone. It's a great way to incorporate that into daily things. Taking the dog with you when you take the trash out, anything like that. But yeah, so there's lots of little fun activities we can do indoors specifically as well. Like I said, fitness activities. You've probably seen those cool viral videos where someone has their dog in a middle position, standing between their feet, moving around and doing like match me movements, changing pace, down, stand, spinning around pivots. Stuff like that's really, really fun too. And it's good engagement between you and your pup, mental and physical exercise. And you don't even need an outdoor space for stuff like that. I do it in the kitchen all the time. But yeah, so even in apartments, small spaces, and with not as much time, there's fun ways we can use training games, hallway games, and other fun cues to keep it interesting.
Excellent, and so many good ideas. The next little box is mine, because here's the problem. Once you've taken all of these great ideas and you've decided what's a good program for your dog, then life starts to happen. You end up working late, or you work late a bunch because you're going through a program where you're on a heavy deadline, or you fall behind on another avenue. Maybe you can't get to the gym and you're really trying to do that, or you have something come up with your family that requires a lot of your time for a temporary period of time, or a social event, or for sometimes you can't walk because you're recovering from an injury or a surgery or things like that. So life tends to get in the way with even the most well thought out exercise program. So this would be a plug for literally enlisting help. As an example, you could still stay on track if you were to bring in a dog walker. So our dog walkers are available 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they're available on demand. So pretty much same day, if you reach out to us, we're going to be able to get a walker over there to you. And the other thing that we do at Backyard Pets is we coordinate with your trainer. So if you happen to be working with a trainer that's not one of the two that we have on the phone today, maybe you're working on a specific issue like pulling or something like that. So every trainer may have worked out with you some really specific protocols that they want the dog to experience every time it misses the mark, so to speak. So we coordinate with your trainer. We learn exactly what it is that the trainer wants you to do in certain situations. And the outcome is that your dog has consistency. So trainer says, this is what good looks like. When you're exercising the dog, you're following the protocol. When we're exercising your dog, we're following the protocol too. And it's just more likely to get you where you want to go. So there are ways to enlist help. And then switching back over to Hooper, the more strategies here to get you going with the limited time.
Yeah. Mixing exercise types, I mentioned earlier, it has a compounding effect. The more of them that you can overlap at the same type of activity, the less time you have to spend on that activity to get them wearing out. So, for example, teaching them how to walk well in isolation in the absence of distractions, that's going to be some mental exercise. And because it's walking, it's physical exercise. Then once they've kind of mastered that, adding in distractions, walking well in the presence of other people, other dogs, temptations to walk differently, that's going to be a lot of that emotional exercise. So really, like, training is one of the best types of exercise you can give a dog. Typically there's a lot of action, there's a lot of fun, they engage really well, as you're getting that mental stimulation, they're learning stuff, and depending on what type of training you're doing, you could also be getting the emotional exercise as well. Dog-friendly tech, I had already kind of mentioned before. If it is a matter of, okay, I can be around and I can't like throw the ball for my dog, but I can be around on work, that's gonna a lot more of those tools become more safely available to you. On top of that, if you can't be around and you can't trust your dogs to handle these types of self-play machines on their own, enlist help. Look for help. And quality over quantity. I always say, especially with training and stuff, 15 minutes of doing it perfectly is better than an hour of doing it pretty well. So holding your dog to that higher standard, even though you can't do things for as long. Now, how that works in practicality is we're trading out physical activity for mental activity, at least in that example. Or then there are some things like the running up the stairs. That's a lot of exercise, and doing kind of high weight, low reps. Lots of as much running up and down the stairs as you can in a short burst. Gets them quick exercise, I would say, without having to run them for longer and longer and longer.
That makes sense. All right, so Sarah, this is your slide because you are the positive experience lady. How can we make exercise a good experience for owner and for pet?
Yes, so positive reinforcement and making sure the dog has a positive experience is the basis for really all quality training and socialization and just forming a good bond as well. But it definitely applies in exercise specifically too. So positive reinforcement as a whole, never a bad idea. So you can use treats, praise, petting, whatever your dog enjoys. Make sure it is something that your dog enjoys for it to be functional as a reinforcer. Keeping sessions short and fun is always key, whether you're training, exercising, or any sort of physical activity, just to make sure that we're not pushing that dog too far past their limits and they're staying engaged. We don't want them to get bored. We don't want them to get overwhelmed. Incorporating variety. We've talked a good bit about all different cool options, and this is a really fun way to incorporate proper socialization too. So true socialization requires that we meet the dog where they're at, we understand their limits, and we give them incremental appropriate challenges or introduction of new things. So same idea happens for exercise when we're doing it well. We're setting the dog up to succeed by acknowledging and understanding where they're at, giving them appropriate activities and challenges, and gradually increasing at their pace specifically to make sure that we have positive outcomes and positive experiences, not just experience for the sake of it. So we can check the box of exercise. We want it to be something they enjoy and will continue to enjoy in the future with lower risk of injury and working towards your goals as far as behavior as well, not against them, and towards their health goals too. We talked about a lot of fun ways to alternate and combine physical and mental stimulation. It's absolutely a key component to make it fun. We're engaging their brain, so it's not just, rote activity or boring repetition. Setting realistic goals. So for many dogs, a plain walk is not necessarily going to be productive or fun or beneficial, especially if we've got dogs that are, say, reactive or they've got certain physical limitations. We want to make sure that we're starting by meeting them where they're at. We're setting goals that incorporate what they love and their limitations and really match, again, what they need. For instance, for dogs that are reactive, a one-on-one play session in your home might be a better alternative, as their midday exercise when it's going to be crazy and hectic outside. Or in some cases, I've had some clients that they know their dog responds much better if they drive 3 minutes down the road and walk there instead of right by their neighbors where it's all busy. So just kind of making sure we have realistic goals as far as what will work for them and for you. We can also make exercise social. So we've talked about some other fun opportunities there with play dates and things like that. This is, of course, super fun in multi-dog households too, because you've already got playmates right there. But yeah, other fun ways to help meet their social enrichment daily needs at the same time as making this a fun activity together, for dogs that are more social and outgoing. This is a fun way to add that element, play with friends, exercise with friends. Everybody loves a good exercise buddy. And we want to make sure we're also using just a variety of motivating items too, particularly with toys. For dogs that are toy driven, for dogs that are a little more food driven, sometimes you may have a little bit more trouble. You can always incorporate food into fun games during walks, fun like food roll games at home or in the yard to make sure we're kind of getting their attention, maintaining value so that they aren't just, being dragged along through an activity or through a walk. We also want to stay attuned to preferences in general. So making sure we, again, respect their limits, make sure that they feel empowered and that they have plenty of choice and that we make activities cooperative. Again, meaning we've got choice. We're not forcing them to do certain things just for the sake of hitting that check mark of, yay, we exercise today. We want to make sure that they are having a productive experience because that will pay into future outcomes with exercise and behavior.
Terrific. I definitely do have one dog who is the king of the toys and the other one who is all about the treats. So they do have their different temperaments. Okay, so Hooper, it looks like we're turning to being safe on the next slide. So we want to make sure a dog is safe, dog parent is safe. How do we do it?
Well, at least in a big sense. So the reason I still have all 10 of my fingers and have been working with aggressive dogs for almost 5 years now is because every time I don't know how something is going to go, I assume it's going to happen the worst way possible and plan accordingly. I plan so that even if the worst case is to happen, everybody is still safe and taken care of. Not even just unnecessary risk, not taking risks, especially when we don't know other people's dogs. Now, on top of that, stuff like the weather here in Texas, it gets hot. It gets way too hot. In general, I recommend if you can avoid walking during that mid part of the day at its hottest during the summer. That's going to be ideal. But if you can't help it, checking the pavement. The way I check the pavement, I use the back of my fingers. If I put my back of my fingers on the concrete and it does actually hurt, I call it there. A dog's paw is a little rougher, it can handle more. So that gives me a degree of safety. Even though that it's too hot for my hand, it might not be too hot for their paw, but if I call it there, I know I'll never even get close to burning their paw. Surface safety, yeah. Leash, collars and harness. So as far as training goes, I know I have my own preferences of which type of leash implements to use. I know other trainers have different preferences. At the end of the day, though, it's not the leash, it's not the type of training implement that you use that's going to make the dog walk well. There is no magic leash that stops your dog from pulling. And any dog that does pull regularly is doing long-term damage one way or the other, depending on what type of leash you're walking. The only way to fix that, the only way to prevent that is to work with them to teach them how to walk on their own. And the leash is a tool in communication in doing that, but it is by no means the what's going to stop them from doing it. So always keep that in mind. And if your dog is constantly pulling, I know people will say like harnesses are better for them to pull on. If your dog's pulling a sled, that might be true, but long term, they're doing some hip damage. Those front clip harnesses, they can't pull more effectively, but again, we're doing some long term damage to the spine and a lot of problems. It causes a lot of problems with their gait long term. Just pulling on a flat collar is going to long term kind of exasperate that trachea, stuff like that. So really teaching them to walk on a loose leash is the only way to prevent long-term damage of pulling like that. Staying hydrated, again, definitely here in Texas, always have water for them on hand or have a way to access it. Dogs have a fur coat so they can get overheated kind of quickly. And unless we're watching them like top down every second, we might miss some of the quick warning signs and then only see once they start the drooling and like, oh no, they definitely need water. Now you want to have it on hand for that, preferably cooled down water. Keeping an eye out for fatigue and injury. Types of injuries you'll see if a dog starts limping, if a dog starts dragging their feet. Those are the types of stuff. The dog just seems droopier. Generally, if they are walking in a way that is out of character for them, if they're walking and it's something that you don't see them do usually, that's a good sign that something might be wrong. That's time to kind of pull over, check, and assess. Now for age and health, typically again, like the younger dogs, the middle-aged dogs, you can be a little more, you can push them a little bit farther. The older dogs, and especially the really old dogs, only exercise as much as they are willing to. Very much kind of what Sarah was saying before, making sure that they have the option and we're not forcing them to do anything because they tend to know their body a little bit better than ours do, than we do, and they will naturally stay within their own limits if they've got types of health issues and limiting factors. Environmental hazards. If your dog is out and on a leash, always keep your head on a swivel. Things can go from 0 to crazy in a split second. And if you catch it even a little bit earlier than once it happens, that little bit of time allows you to react and prep and can actually make a lot of difference in the moment. But especially all the training, really working and focusing on that training. A well-trained dog that can show self-control is so much better and so much safer in a crisis because you can trust them to listen and follow you, and you don't have to be trying to handle both the situation and the dog at the same time. So training really is one of the best, if not the best thing you can do and invest in order for your dog's safety. And then post-exercise care, really making sure, both in the idea of making sure they had a good time, I always say, like, after a dog has had a strenuous either training activity or exercise, run by Starbucks, get them a pop cup. I don't know if that's particularly good for them, but I know they like it. Um, Making sure that they enjoyed that exercise, as well as giving them all the time to rest up. Dogs will like to walk in and kind of lay down on like hardwood floor or tile floors to let the floor just suck the heat out of them. Don't be too eager to push them back up. They will let you know when they have that energy back by being up and about again.
Excellent. So recovery is a big part of the program. So not just all the exercise, but some recovery time belongs in your program. So Sarah, what can we say about this?
Yes. Also, real quick, I just want to build it with a couple little points on the surface and harness safety. So other thing for surfaces that people often forget is traction and grip. So this is especially obvious with older pups when you get into that arthritis kind of phase. But even for young pups, grip and surface traction is still really important for exercise, especially if you're doing something indoors, out in, the mud, wherever you can still get injuries that way. But indoors, a lot of the times having little runners or rugs, wherever you're going to be doing, especially like position cues or activities are awesome. Another thing is making sure we check in with Kathy for regular grooming, making sure nails are short and fur between the toes is tidy, because those can contribute to slipping, especially for seniors who are already working hard to maintain grip. And I also want to reiterate, no equipment will teach your dog not to pull. My favorite harnesses that I recommend say no pull. It's just marketing. I make sure to tell people all the time that is not real. If equipment stops your dog from pulling, it's because it hurts and you shouldn't be using it in the first place. You have to teach your dog not to pull. I do always recommend properly fit harnesses, not the cruddy harnesses that like have bands that go across this way. They should be harnesses that are properly fit and encourage natural range of motion to prevent chafing, injuries, and physical issues overall. And this is not because it stops pulling, but it's because a properly fit quality harness mitigates the injury risk best until they learn those important skills or in emergency situations. And there are escape-proof options too. So a third strap in the back to make sure that we don't have that escape risk for dogs that's applicable for, so you still get all those benefits. But yes, so also for age and breed, age absolutely informs some of the intensity and appropriate type of activities. I know we've talked about this a bit, but overexercise with young pups is especially dangerous. Their joints aren't fully formed yet. We've got some big gaps in there. I hear all the time, oh, well, I have, a GSP or a lab or, a high energy dog. And so they want to start them running with them early or biking with them early, and you can absolutely cause lifelong damage. We want to be careful to match it based on their developmental stage too, not just because they seem rowdy. We want to keep their, body development in mind. And with seniors, we also want to make sure that we adjust accordingly. There's lots of fun ways to make sure they keep getting movement in ways that work with them and not against them. Continual movement can be very helpful for arthritis, minimizing pain and symptoms. And it's important for dogs of all ages too. And other fun things there with health and fitness level and age and intensity. For all of those things, I like to make sure I use timers when it's either very hot out, the dog is less in shape, or the dog is older. So timers help a ton so that you aren't just thinking, oh, how long have we been doing this? You have an actual representation of how long have we been doing this? Where are we at in our progression of fitness? How hot is it outside? And you're not just guessing. So it helps you really prevent overexercise. Dogs actually need a lot more rest than we think, especially young pups. So if we are over-exercising, as Hooper will go into more in a little bit, we definitely need more rest. Alternating activity types. There are lots of fun ways we can change up our exercise to be more or less intense on different days. I don't go all out with my boy every single day. We kind of mix it up to make sure we're not overdoing it and to make sure we're evening it out pretty nicely. There's other solutions as far as when the weather is poor too, that you may have to alternate activities for or accommodate. So I love cooling gear, staying in the shade, of course, but I love cooling vests if you need to be out and active with your pup, especially midday. Say you're in an apartment and they need their midday exercise or walk for whatever reason, then fun solutions like that are helpful. Bringing a little water or travelable with you are great as well. Again, we always want to match to fitness level, even on our higher, lower intensity days. And yeah, rest is absolutely just as critical as exercise. If you don't let the body recover, you're going to be much more prone to injury. And again, undesirable boredom and frustration behaviors will happen when we get not enough exercise, but we still get well-being risks and other behavior issues that can come out, and health issues from under exercise. So we want to make sure we're hitting that nice sweet spot, as Hooper's going to explain more in a moment, so we don't have too little or too much exercise.
Excellent. So Hooper, how do I tell if I have gone too far, or when I'm designing my program, what do I just want to be mindful of when I'm actually out there executing?
So as far as like overexercise goes, general signs of lethargy, like day-to-day active lethargy, means that we're likely burning up way too much energy just on the offset. Similar, a lot of these factors are going to be similar to people too if we are overexercising ourselves. Drooling and foaming at the mouth is an early sign of overheating. So in the moment, okay, maybe I'm pushing my dog too far. And then yeah, slowing down or lagging behind is another sign. Dogs do a lot of the same things we do when we get tired. I'll start to slow down, I'll fall behind, I'll start to get thirsty. Limping or stiffness. I have seen dogs, at least personally, fake a limp to get out of doing exercise. And while lying isn't the best thing, the reason they're lying, the core behind it, is because they are showing distress. They are not comfortable with this, and they are using what tools they have. It's better to honor that and to call it off there than it is to beat your head against the wall and be like, no, you're fine, keep going. So even if you doubt the actual injury, keep in mind if they are faking it, there's a reason they're faking it, and that reason is important. Now, glazed eyes or lethargy, kind of for lack of a better term, woo-woo-ness, where they kind of are it seems like they're staring past you more than looking at you. Vomiting or diarrhea. If you are on a walk and you have pushed them far enough to where they are vomiting or having diarrhea, you pushed them way too far like an hour ago and kept going. Very much so. If you see any signs of health distress in that exercise right now, and contact a vet. Excessive thirst. If a dog is drinking too much too regularly, if they are constantly thirsty, there is something wrong. It could be us over exercising them. It could be them being stuck in an environment. It could be a lot of things, but yes, that is a red flag for sure. Uncoordinated movement or weakness. This is something that you'll see likely in the recovery period. After you've gotten back, if they seem if they are light on their feet, tripping over themselves, that's a sign that we pushed them way too far. After we get to the recovery, they still need to have that wherewithal, that state of mind where they can see and think for themselves and at least take care of themselves and walk around. Let's see, excessive drooping of the tail or ears. Yes. A general, like if it looks like the dog is just almost melting into the ground, figuratively speaking, yeah, that's the type of sign that, okay, they're tired, they're running out. Increased heart rate. That's something that typically a doctor is going to be checking. If you can feel their heart with your hand and it seems fast for their size, remember the smaller dogs are going to have a naturally faster heart rate. But if it seems faster than what it normally is, that is definitely if it seems faster during a period of rest. Sorry, if we are like running and we stop and we check it, of course it's going to naturally be faster. But if it maintains that higher heart rate even through into rest, that's the red flag. Whining or unusual vocalization. Again, whining could mean a great deal number of things, but at a minimum, it typically means discomfort. And it's worth figuring out what the source of that discomfort is, as well as unusual vocalizations. Really anything out of the ordinary. If during your exercise or because of your exercise regimen, your dog seems different, out of the ordinary, aren't able to be themselves, that's that's the red flag. It could be something on this list. It could be something else. Not mentioned. Heat exhaustion or heat stroke symptoms. Heat stroke is a big deal, especially once we actually go into that heat stroke. The timer starts on your ability to kind of salvage the situation. If you have pushed your dog that far and they do collapse due to heat exhaustion, you have to get their body temperature down as fast as possible. Typically, like putting them in a shallow bath of ice water, or something like that as quickly as possible. But really, you have missed so many other signs by the time you get there. If you haven't noticed the others by the time the dog goes over heat exhaustion, really you need to take a kind of a bigger look at yourself and say, okay, wait, am I paying enough attention to my dog? Am I making sure and catching the warning signs? Am I walking them in an environment that is unsuited to them because of the heat or something like that? Because really, there's a lot of warning signs before you hit the heat exhaustion point.
Excellent. So if once you've begun on your exercise program or routine for your dog, and you're suspecting that it's a little bit too much, you want to talk about the levers that are available for you so you can start to make some adjustments.
Oh, yes. So yeah, first and foremost, reduce the intensity. And reducing the intensity can come in a lot of different ways. If we're going on a run, you could reduce the speed at which you're running. You could reduce the distance at which you're running. Any of those types of things. If they're pulling weight, like if they're a sled dog pulling weight, or if they're doing like agility training, like do it for a shorter period of time. So not doing it as long. Increasing the rest breaks, taking frequent stops, is almost never a bad idea to check in. The more often you stop, give them a rest break. That's also a chance for us to check in and observe them to see where they're at with this exercise, as well as we're working and as we're exercising. Our bodies need more water, and dogs don't have pores through which to sweat through. It all comes out their mouth, which is actually a pretty small surface area, and a little bit of through their paws. So they can't quite regulate their temperature as quickly as we can. And so giving them some extra time there to let that heat out before jumping back in can be very helpful. Changing the time of day. I honestly am a fan of saying just walk whatever works best for you. If it's 3 a.m. in the morning, do it. If you have to do that because your dog struggles with reacting to other dogs, if it's just too hot all the rest of the time, for whatever reason, working out in a cooler environment is easier. Is always going to be a little bit better. And then opting for low impact activities. And one of the things I do really recommend is swimming. If you can swing and access to a pool, or a pool that someone's willing to allow a dog in, can be a fairly limiting factor. But if you can access it, it is a lot harder for your dog to overheat in a pool. Not impossible, but it is more difficult. And again, it is putting less direct strain on their body from just their bodies moving up and down, bouncing, hurting their joints. It is a all around easier exercise to maintain long term with fewer drawbacks. And it does wear them out a little bit faster than just like a regular run would too. So it allows you to work out for a shorter period of time.
Perfect. Okay, so before I go to this slide, which gets folks to have an understanding of how they could get a hold of you, I want to thank you, of course, for the material that we already went over, but I'm going to check the Zoom to see if there maybe are some questions that have been accumulating in the chat room that we could cover right now. So one of them that came through early on was about barking. So in particular, this question is about terriers and barking, and why is this going on? Is it because that they are a high energy breed? So Sarah, you want to take a run at that? Why so much bark?
So yes, the high energy definitely is a contributing factor. Lots of dog breeds are definitely just genetically more prone to be vocal. And especially with a lot of terriers, just their the line of work they were originally bred for lends itself to that. In other words, think like rat terrier. They're bred to, hunt and chase out rats. So the barking is just part of their methodology. So it's definitely a little bit of genetics and energy and all of that kind of mixing together. But yeah, it's part of why they're known for that.
Exactly. And the next question was about slipping and feet slipping. So I know I have observed this in one of my dog, who is the oldest. He's probably, in the 15, 16, 17 years old. And I have seen him start to lose his footing. And it's not because he isn't properly groomed, because I have my folks come through on the regular to groom him, but he's just like almost turtles. Where his feet just don't have the grip before that they used to. So is there anything that I can do when working with a dog like this that has started to be slippier than 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 they were before? Is there anything as an owner that I can do? What do you think, Sarah?
Oh, okay. So yes, definitely. I am a big fan of adding little like bath mats and runners in key areas. So like, let's say by the front door, there's not just a welcome mat, there's also a grippy mat there too. So that when the dog greets you, when you come in, we don't have slipping. Same thing by back doors, on and off of like beds, couches, stuff like that, to make sure that they aren't overstressing their joints and those muscles, especially in seniors when they're getting on and off of things. And again, like you said, making sure those nails and fur are trimmed nice and tidy. But sometimes the arthritis is a big factor. And yeah, toenail grips, it kind of depends on the dog. If there's too much of an ingestion risk, I don't recommend them. In some cases, for dogs that are very mellow, older dogs, they are not as likely to try to chew on them, ingest them, and the benefit would far outweigh that risk. In other words, some that are absolutely big fall risks, it's definitely very helpful. For a lot of pups, sometimes we just start with something like little grippy socks to kind of see, okay, is a little bit of traction support more of what you need, or can we stick with just, some mats and runners just to kind of figure out what works. Little grips on stairs to help a ton if you've got any slick stairs indoors or outdoors, because they're a big high risk area for grip as well.
That is good advice, and something that I have not actually thought about, how I can use my my grippy surf, because I have all kind of tile slick surfaces in my house, so I actually could make some pathways for this little guy and probably make his life easier now that I see that this is starting to happen to him over and over. So excellent. I think that we have addressed the questions that are in the queue. Yeah, it looks like we have. Okay, so let me shoot back over to the slides. So Sarah, when folks want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yes, this QR code takes you to my digital business card. So you can scan that to easily save my contact info for later, and also have quick access to social media, website, email, phone, everything just right there. But yeah, you can call or email me to schedule a free consult call to chat. Offer those so you can chat about training needs, your dog's needs, any questions about the process, or just how to get started.
Awesome. And then Hooper, how should folks reach out to you if they want to talk more about anything today?
Yeah, there's two ways to reach me. One through the Backyard Pet Services number website. I'm the head trainer there, so if you sign up for training through them, you're going to get me. Or you can contact me directly at 214-551-9733. And as far as like if you have any questions directly about like, what type of training, how it's structured, anything like that, typically come to me first instead of trying to jump through a middleman to figure all that type of stuff out. At least that's what I recommend.
Terrific. That is great. And then I have a how to get in touch page as well. So that phone number there is our main telephone number, and we have schedulers who are looking after that number throughout the day. You can also check out our website. There's a little form you can fill out there, but you can reach us for any of these needs, and we would be more than happy to help you out. So let me see, we hit the questions for the most part that were in the chat room, but if anybody wanted to jump in right now and just get on the mic, you would have an opportunity to do it. I'm going to check the attendees just one more time. Let's see, right there. Which, let's see, if I hit enough keystones correctly, that'll do it. Okay. So, let's see. I'm pushing all the wrong buttons. So we'll ignore that. I wanted to say, once again, thanks to both of you for joining us. There's way more than I was even thinking about in terms of dog exercise, just especially the mental aspects and combining aspects. And I just feel like there's a lot more intentionality that you can put in your dog's exercise program once you're kind of aware of all this. And I think that that's a win-win, right? A win for you and a win for your pet too. So thanks to both of you. Thanks to everybody who joined. And we are looking forward to seeing you again on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Bye.